Hi everyone! In today's video, I'm going to discuss how I built a magic system out of nothing. Before starting 7th Virtue, I hadn't written genre fiction in years. If you want to learn more about 7th Virtue, I will link that video up in the cards and also in the description. I also had never written magic before. I was overwhelmed with building my first magic system in a genre I'd never written before. I'm also a pantser and had no idea where I should start. This video is for people like me who are also easily overwhelmed with world building and or those who don't know where to start. Of course, this is my experience and not necessarily a how-to. I will link in the description a couple of articles that tremendously helped me figure out my magic system as a magic noob. So the first thing that I did to come up with my magic system for 7th Virtue is I came up with a very basic concept for the magic. Would it be elemental magic? Would it be based on astrology? Would it be based on food? Would it be based on spells? Funnily for me, the entire theme of my magic system came from the title. Now, I'd had the title 7th Virtue sitting around in a titles document for a long time. It was originally a chapter title in Feeding Habits before I changed the title. And when I needed to title my fantasy book that I had been writing, of course, 7th Virtue, I went into my titles document and I thought the title 7th Virtue sounded the most fantasy. So I was like, okay, this is the title now. Good thing I did, because it helped me brainstorm the entire magic system. The entire concept was based off of the title alone. So to brainstorm the theme of the magic system, what the magic system was about, I looked first to the tone of the novel. It's got a lot of tarot vibes, some witchy vibes, some bird vibes, and some religious vibes. And so I mushed those all together. The religious aspect was especially important when it came to my magic system. Of course, the title refers to the Catholic 7 virtues and 7 capital sins. From this concept, I thought it'd be cool if there were 7 families that corresponded with each sin and with each virtue, and that all of those families would have a different type of magic. This led me to create the basic concept of the 7 houses and the 7 types of magic. So the second thing that I did to create a magic system out of nothing was that I loosely gave the characters vague powers. Because I wasn't planning this book really, I had to come up with the powers on the spot. Now, in the early 2018 notes of me brainstorming this book, I had decided that I wanted Reeve to have some sort of mind control power, so that stayed the same, but everybody else, I had no idea what they could do magically. So the other characters, I sort of Russian rouletted their powers. I was like, you get a power and you get a power. It wasn't really super intentional. Foster got his power second, and I decided he would just be a time traveler, and from there, everybody else, I just kind of threw powers at them. Of course, this was a very crude system, nothing fancy, it just got the job done. So the third thing that I did to build a magic system was I decided which houses had what type of magic. So the houses, aka the families in 7th Virtue, are also known as roosts. So in Scrivener, I created a document called Virtue Breakdowns. In this single document, I listed each house, aka the roost, and I also made a list of what each person in the family could do magically. But these were only idea starters. Now, I got a lot of these ideas by sort of going on websites and like scrolling through and seeing what kind of magic already exists in stories. And these were like sort of general themes of magic, like Harrison as pyrokinesis, for example. Now, I initially only filled this out for the houses that mattered, aka characters from those families appear in the book. So I did this for Roosts 3, 4, and 7, but then I went back and I filled them out for 1, 2, 5, and 6. So the fourth thing that I did to create my magic system is I went through my notes and copied each note that had to do with the creation of the magic system into a separate document. So the next step was to go through, of course, my 7th Virtue notes document. 7th Virtue notes is just a brain dump of ideas I get for the book. It's not organized at all. And this is just to document future scenes or conflict. Now, I copy and pasted any note that had to do with the magic system into that separate document, and I called that document Magic System Brain Dump. I've talked about it in a couple of videos. This was simply an organizational tool so I could have all of the information in one place, and it was not pretty at all. I wanted to do this because I pantsed the book and had come up with the magic system while I was writing it, and I couldn't remember how all of the magical rules functioned, and so I just wanted to see what I'd written in my notes already. Now, the fifth thing that I did to create my magic system was similar. I went through the book and copy and pasted every moment that magic was mentioned and the explanations given in text. So the part 2 of step 4 was to do the exact same thing, copying and pasting mentions of the magic system, but this time I copy and pasted from actual text of the book. So things that I had written, it was mostly dialogue exposition. So I copy and pasted each of these moments into the exact same document, which was Magic System Brain Dump. After doing this, I had a full document full of bits and pieces of notes that contained any development of the magic system, up until that point at least. So the sixth step to creating my magic system was I made bullet point notes based off all magic related rules / elements noted in the actual book. So this was a document that I called Magic System Bible. I know a lot of people don't like having 5,000 documents. I do, so that I'm aware of what's in the document, but you could do this all in one document. Magic System Bible turned into a streamlined version of Magic System Braindump. To create the Bible, I split screened my screen with the Magic System Braindump and the Magic System Bible. And note by note, I consolidated all of my ideas, all of my notes, into just a few bullet points. I also broke down the notes by major headings or major magical experiences. So for example, one of my headings is Foster's Time Loop. This became one of the most important documents for 7th Virtue because if I'm confused or I don't remember how something works in terms of the magic in my book, I can just do Control F and find that information by doing a quick search. In this document, I also took notes for some other things like conflicts, things that weren't related to the magic, so they're not important for this video, but they did pop into my head and I thought I'd take notes for them. For example, like the deal Lonan makes with his family. I also added history and legends about the magic in this document too under separate headings. For example, there is a legend in my book that's really important, so I wrote down notes about it. So the goal here with Magic System Bible was speed, not perfection. So if I couldn't figure out how XYZ magic worked, I couldn't figure out how this character did this or the limits on so-and-so's magic, I'd asterisk the heading so I knew that I needed to circle back and flesh that out later. This allowed me to not get caught up with the little details and to get more done and to understand more volume of the magic system rather than getting caught up in the fine details. So the 7th step to creating my magic system was I refined those bullet points / expanded on things I'd been stuck on / wasn't sure about. So after drafting the Bible document, I went in to revise it. This is because while I fleshed out the bullet points, I'd naturally run into moments where I wasn't sure what needed to be said or I wasn't sure how something worked, like I mentioned. This by far was the most time-consuming part of creating the magic system because I had to flesh out the asterisk moments, and of course I had asterisked those moments because I had no idea how to figure them out or what to write underneath them during the initial pass. However, all it took was a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of time, and some brainstorming, me just sort of writing out notes like, okay, well, this could be the case. And then when I solidified something, I went and I revised those notes, just like I did in the previous step. So the 8th step to creating my magic system was I made notes in my what to revise document about things in the magic system that I'd be changing. So this was a task I did concurrently, so while I was doing everything else, but I just thought I would note it here. Of course, while I was fleshing out the magic system, I realized I needed to make changes to certain parts of the magic system, or I developed the magic system in a way where something could no longer occur the way it did in the book. Most of the time this happened because I'd added harder limits on the magic, so something couldn't occur the way I'd originally written it. In my things to revise document, I simply made bullet points about changes that I wanted to make that I'll implement in a later draft. So this also was more about speed rather than perfection. I'm not trying to spend another 4 months trying to revise everything. As long as I know how the magic system works now, I can go and fix those issues later. This saved me time from having to go back into the book while I was world building to revise, which would have been time consuming for no reason. So finally, I created a power breakdown document. This was the final step for me in creating my magic system. I know, it was that simple. No, it really wasn't, but it was fun. While the Magic System Bible gave me a detailed understanding of the magic in this book, I also wanted an at-a-glance version that I could quickly refer to while I was drafting that was a little less overwhelming to look at. Even though I organized the Bible document really well, I still wanted something that was a little bit simpler. To do this, I made a document called Roost Power Breakdowns, and the first thing I did was made a table where I named the roosts number, virtue, sin, and magic theme. Beneath that, I made a bullet point list of each character's powers from characters who show up in certain roosts. Not every single roost has a character that shows up in this book, maybe in future books, but really it's only 3. It's 3, 4, and 7 that show up in 7th Virtue. But I didn't explain each character's powers because that information is in the Bible for me to refer to. So that was all that I did to create this magic system. Now, I didn't feel like I needed to do more to understand this magic system. If I do, I'll continue to return to the Magic System Bible and I'll add on to it, but this was enough for me to feel secure in how the magic worked as somebody who is so confused about it originally. Of course, this is a huge improvement from where I was at before. Now, my next step is to create character profiles using the info I've gleaned so I can have an easier to read version that looks a little bit more aesthetic, and I'm gonna make this in Campfire. Check out my video that I did in Campfire on character profiles because they're pretty cute and it's an easier way for me to get a breakdown as as well that's a bit more visual. I hope this video was helpful for you if you're trying to develop a magic system, but for now, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in another video. Bye.